You look at this game against the Chicago Bears, and you can't help but feel sick. This wasn't supposed to be a loss. The Raiders had everything lined up, a defense playing lights out for most of the afternoon, Maxx Crosby wreaking havoc on nearly every snap, Ashton Jeanty putting together one of the best games of his young career. The running game was explosive, the offensive line didn't even give up a sack, and yet, somehow, some way, the Raiders still walked away losers. That's not just disappointing, that's embarrassing. And this wasn't a loss to the Chiefs or the Bills or some powerhouse contender. This was a loss to a Chicago Bears team led by Caleb Williams, a rookie still figuring out NFL defenses, a team that had no business leaving Allegiant Stadium with a win. The Raiders should have won this game by 3 touchdowns. Instead, they choked it away, 25-24, with the most Raiders-style heartbreak you can imagine, turnovers, sloppy execution, and a blocked field goal when the game was on the line. What's up, Raiders fans? Welcome to the NFL Playbook Raiders. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about breaking down everything you need to know about the Raiders. Do you know who's the real culprit? It's Geno Smith. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. But at this point, the patience is gone. Geno Smith is not the guy. He threw 3 interceptions in this game, bringing his season total to 6, maybe 7, depending on how you track them. That's not just bad luck. That's not just tipped passes. That's a quarterback making poor reads, forcing throws that aren't there, and flat out dooming his own team. It's good he's being aggressive and daring, but look, dare with calculation is foolishness. The numbers don't lie. He finished with 117 yards passing, 117. In today's NFL, you're not beating anyone putting up those numbers, especially not when you're also handing the other team free possessions. And let's not sugarcoat it. 2 of those interceptions directly led to Bears points. You give Caleb Williams short fields, he's going to cash in eventually, and that's exactly what happened. Geno's decision-making cost the Raiders at least 10 points, maybe more, and in a 1-point game, that's the difference between victory and disaster. And here's what makes it even worse. The offensive line actually held up. Remember, this is a unit that just lost Kolton Miller to a high ankle sprain, a guy who's been one of the best tackles in football this season. He goes down, and yet the line still didn't give up a sack. They gave Geno time. They opened lanes for Jeanty to gash the Bears' defense. They did their job. You can't point to protection. You can't say he was under siege. He just didn't deliver. But Geno's struggles are only part of the story. The Raiders' special teams fiasco has to be mentioned. Jacob Bobenmoyer, the long snapper, got exposed by the Bears. He's got to tell. He moves the ball right before he snaps it, and Chicago figured it out. They were timing our kicks perfectly. Josh Blackwell came off the edge and blocked Daniel Carlson's 54-yarder, and that one play sealed the loss. Think about that. The Raiders had the chance to steal this game despite Geno's turnovers, despite the miscues, and they couldn't even execute a basic field goal operation because their long snapper was tipping it off. That's the kind of detail that separates good teams from perennial losers. Now, I know some people want to blame the coaching staff, and I think that's fair too. Pete Carroll is supposed to be the steady hand here, the veteran coach who knows how to manage these situations. But how many times can we watch this team fail to finish? The defense held Chicago to field goals multiple times, gave the offense every chance to put the game away, and the Raiders still came up short. And then you look at Chip Kelly's offense. It's flat out uninspired. There's no creativity, no rhythm, and the quarterback looks completely out of sync with his receivers. How do you have Brock Bowers, a top-tier weapon, and only scheme him into a handful of catches for 46 yards? How do you ride Ashton Jeanty to 138 rushing yards and still only put 24 points on the board? That's a failure of coaching. That's a failure of preparation. And let me be clear, the defense doesn't get off scot-free either. For 3 quarters, they were phenomenal. Crosby was everywhere. The secondary held up. The Bears looked rattled. But when it mattered most, when the game was on the line, they allowed Caleb Williams to march 11 plays, 69 yards down the field, and punch in the go-ahead touchdown. You can't call yourself an elite defense if you fold in crunch time. So when you add it all up, the quarterback throwing picks, the special teams getting exposed, the defense collapsing in the clutch, and the coaching failing to make adjustments, what do you get? You get a 1-point loss to a team you should have beaten by 20. You get a 1-3 record instead of 2-2. You get a locker room that has to be questioning its leadership. And I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to hear about Geno still learning the system or Kolton Miller's injury or how the Bears got lucky on a blocked kick. The reality is simple. Good teams overcome those things. Good teams find a way to win ugly games. The Raiders, they find a way to lose them. And that's been the story for years now. Look at the pattern. Last season, there were late-game collapses, poor red zone execution, and blown assignments. This year, it's turnovers and mental mistakes. Different faces, same results. Raider fans have seen this movie before, and we know how it ends. Now, let's dig a little deeper into Geno Smith's play, because I know that's where most of the heat is right now. His first interception was a late throw into coverage, the kind of ball that should never come out of a veteran's hand. His second pick was a forced attempt on a dagger concept, something Pete Carroll himself admitted they practiced all week. In practice, Geno made the throw. In the game, he got baited, and Kevin Byard picked it off. That's the difference between practice reps and live NFL action. That's the difference between a good quarterback and a liability. The other issue here is miscommunication. You could see it on the field. There were moments where Geno was yelling at Trey Tucker to motion, where linemen looked confused on run assignments, where guys just weren't on the same page. That's coaching. That's preparation. And that's execution all failing at once. And I can't ignore the wasted opportunities with weapons like Dante Thornton. How many chances does this guy need before we admit he's not producing? Wide open in the red zone, Geno misses him. Multiple targets, no big plays. If you can't rely on him, then why is he out there in critical moments? Let's also talk about the run-pass balance. When you're averaging 7.7 yards per carry as a team, when Jeanty is ripping off chunk plays, when Raheem Mostert is gashing for 15 yards a pop, why are you putting the ball in Geno's hands so much? Why not ride the hot hand and bleed the clock? Instead, Chip Kelly kept dialing up passes, and we all saw how that turned out. So, where do the Raiders go from here? That's the million-dollar question. Do you bench Geno Smith? Some fans are calling for it. Do you hand the reins to Kenny Pickett or hope Cam Miller can step in and spark something? Maybe. But here's the reality. You're tied to Geno financially for at least this season and next. Unless you're ready to eat that money, you're stuck. And that's the scariest part. Because every week he's under center, you're wasting the prime years of guys like Maxx Crosby. And let's be honest, if you're Mark Davis, if you're the front office, how many more times are you going to watch this team beat itself before you make changes at the top? Pete Carroll was brought in to bring stability, but right now he looks like a coach past his prime, relying on outdated schemes and incapable of fixing the very problems that have plagued this team for years. Chip Kelly was supposed to innovate the offense, but all we see are predictable calls and a quarterback floundering. Fans are fed up, and rightfully so. Raider Nation deserves better than this. This isn't about one bad game. This is about a culture of failure, about an organization that keeps tripping over its own feet. Until that changes, until someone in leadership holds this team accountable, we're going to keep seeing Sundays like this.